This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing, runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. So let's waste no time, folks. Woo, yeah, let's get to it. Story number 1. What local role will YSU play in 2022? YSU is currently at the drawing board at the beginning of 2022 this year. Now, the university is reaching out to current and former students to see what they can do as a university to lighten up the load, to sweeten the deal a bit. Now, currently, the university is seeing a slight decline in enrollment. COVID-19 was just another setback to the well-invested university. A lot of people have been donating. Now, current news and circulation shows that the university staff wants more emphasis on academics rather than sports. Now, this is after news broke of YSU's plan to cut some academic classes that were lagging in attendance. Now, in 2022, the university could play a huge role in the development of the Youngstown downtown area. That's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2. Understanding how Youngstown became filled with blight. This is a big story. Now, over the years, there have been a lot of concerning patterns that have been emerging in Youngstown of depreciating properties. That means they've been decreasing in value in the inner city. Now, Youngstown is not the only city that has had to deal with blight when you talk about depreciating properties and decaying properties that are falling apart. Now, how this problem evolves over time has a lot to do with home ownership and how they manage their property and how residents that are in these neighborhoods migrate in and out of these homes, never fixing them back up. Now, property owners also play a factor in this story. Now, some property owners rent these properties out but never focus on reinvestment back into the properties. Now, another local factor that plays a part of this is cost. Some people leave these properties in so much bad shape that they cost too much to repair. The price of building and rebuilding neighborhoods is expensive. So that's another factor. Minimum manpower, not enough people to help you out, not enough people to pay, not enough money to pay these people. Resources and planning also play a factor. Now, drug-invested neighborhoods is just another thing that's a huge concern in how blight emerges over time. And that's why story number 2 will be a big headline in 2022. Big headline. Story number 3. What needs to be done locally to have a good 2022? In 2021, Youngstown re-elected Mayor Jamel Tito Brown, turning down the opportunity to flip the city to Republican or a Democrat or a independent ticket. Now, moving forward, the city is still searching for a winning formula. Crime is also still a problem. Every week, there are stories in circulation about residents complaining about gunshots and people getting killed. That's not good news. Now, businesses are purposely staying away from certain crime-riddled areas in the city because of the crime. Now, in 2021, the city witnessed the killing of multiple kids from 18 years old till down. That's not good on paper. Now, education and culture have also been on the list of things to improve in Youngstown and in the city. Now, in 2021, the city also had to deal with the strain brought on by COVID-19, which didn't make things any better. Now, with the lifeline of aid money in 2022, the city will have to focus on improving the local local economy, decreasing crime, and getting residents good paying jobs, and also finding things for people to do in the meantime. And that's why story number 3, such a big headline. Story number 4, high death rates are still a local problem. Funerals are not cheap, folks, and the Valley has been seeing a large number of deaths from just about every category, including COVID. Now, beginning 2022, now may be a good time to check on those life insurance policies, living wills, and wills, period. Now, the data shows that a large number of people that are dying are not prepared and they're leaving their surviving relatives with a lot to deal with. And that's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5, moving on up. Local drug offenses carry on into 2022. Families battling with drug problems are still a major concern beginning 2022. Now, in 2021, Trumbull and Mahoning counties both saw eye-boggling drug stories, with some of these stories resulting in overdose drug cases, people dying of overdoses. Now, local drug offenses have remained in the headlines, with some stories involving some well-known pharmacy chains. Even the pharmaceutical companies are getting caught in the drug mess. Now, the people on the front lines of the drug war can't seem to find a solution to the still growing problem: drugs and drug addiction. Most of the drug addiction facilities are flooded with addicts who are still having a hard time kicking the habit. My story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6. 2 years into the COVID battle, how are we doing locally? Cases are still being counted. Local hospitals are still experiencing COVID fatigue. And at the moment, the reality in the COVID battle is that nothing is working. Nothing. Now, most people have just decided to rely on their own better judgment in this battle. And some people are winning, some people are losing. Now, the biggest problem that medical professionals are having is what they have been preaching about for years, and that is just simply practicing good health habits. A lot of people are not practicing good health habits, and it's causing them to really lose the COVID fight. Now, convincing the public that they're not the enemy, that the people, the professionals are not the enemy, has also been a concern. In 2022, we will see how this all develops over time. That's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 7 in the top 2. Local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Story number 7. Local money talk and how people spend is big in 2022. Money! Americans may seem stupid and naive at times, but don't we all, folks? But down to the real deal, when you talk about the 99%, these people, Americans, can network. Very, very great. They can network pretty good compared to the 99. Well, that's what they are. The 99% compared to the 1%. So through it all, when it's all said and done, Americans know how to network. Even if they're stupid or naive, they do know how to get smarter over time. And we as Americans also know how to spread information to start a movement real fast. That can be proven. Now, this includes local residents. That could be included in this. We're all in the 99% except for the 1%. Now, in 2022, this will play a huge factor in how people spend their money. Local money talk is big, and how people spend their money will shape the development of the local economy in the long run. Now, education and reinvestments will also play a huge factor in 2022. That's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Silhouette of a perfect story made for you to keep you informed before. Just got to get it out sometime. Story number 8. What do local businesses have to do to get through 2022? Here we go, folks. They have to plan. Stay informed. That's another plan. Have a good support base. That's another strategy to get through 2022 as a business. Listen to your customers. Find out what works and doesn't work. Very, very fast, quickly. Know where to get funding and stay within the budget to make sure the bills are paid. These are all of the things that will keep a business afloat in 2022, and this is important because the Small Business Administration has done everything possible to reach out to the small business community to assist them in just about every category. The key to getting through 2022 will be consistency, folks. Staying within budget, minimal risk, and accountability. Sticking to what works is also what will play a big part of this top story. Business is everything locally and across America. So let's have a good year, folks, and let's go out and support small business. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines. So don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Oh, yeah.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Will. Very good friend of mine. I went over his house one year, and he was so concerned about keeping his New Year's resolution, and every New Year's I think about my imaginary buddy Will. I mean this guy, just unbelievable. And one time I went over his place, and he was on the ledge. I mean, the guy was about to literally commit suicide. So I went out there with him. I'm like, Will, you sure you want to do this? He said, yeah, I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna do it. I'm tired of living. And I've been a peacemaker, the mediator. Sometimes you go through situations like this. So I came out on the ledge. I peeked out the window, and I said, Will, that's a pretty long jump. You sure you want to do it? He said, I want to do it. I'm tired. And I said, why? What is going on? I didn't keep my New Year's resolution, Brian. I said, what was it? I'm having too much sex. Sex, Will? Sex is good. That's how you populate the planet. So I got upset with Will. I said, Will, you're losing your mind. You want to jump because you're getting emotion in the ocean? Too much child support, Brian. Too much. I said, Will, pay it. Find a way. Get some visitation rights. Don't jump. It ain't over yet. One of these kids may grow up and you may save their life. Whew. It's hard being a mediator sometimes. But just so you get it, the New Year's resolution is not over yet, folks. Hang in there. If you don't keep the resolution, you got another day. Don't be like Will. Don't try to commit suicide. Live. Living is good. Sex is good. Raising children is all right. Well, folks, let's waste no time. That's my story. Let's get to it. And I'm sticking to it. Story number 1. The mass shooting problem isn't going away. Story number 1. The mass shooting stories they're staying alive. They stayed alive in 2021 and will now carry on into 2022. Now, there are little to no solutions due to the mass amounts of guns on the market. Now, some advocates for stricter gun laws want better legislation on AR-15s, but no matter what side of the coin this story falls on, It's keeping guns. It's keeping the gun stories alive, and it's also people want to keep guns away from people who don't use them for good. That's what the whole purpose of all this is. No matter how this story goes on, people want to keep the guns from the people who are not using them, and that's the real problem in this. Who are not using them for good, and that's the real problem in this story. Now, America saw at least 29 school shootings in 2021. This doesn't mention the amount of shootings that took place on a day-to-day basis in 2021. So that's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. Dealing with poverty will be a top headline in 2022, but why? COVID-19 put a halt on the poverty wars, put a stop to it. It almost did. Now, once again, places like Yemen are in the headlines because the UN is sounding the alarm on a funding crisis, causing a cut to food assistance. Another headline focusing on how the pandemic has pushed nearly 100 million people into poverty adds more emphasis to why this will be a top story in 2022. Now, dealing with poverty is a major concern. This is yet another story making major headlines. That's why story number 2 made it in this week. Story number 3, why the China and U.S. relationship is a global story. Everybody's watching. Now, the world is watching America and China. That's a fact. Relations between the two countries, America and China, has everything to do with trade and businesses. That's why this is one of the top stories. China offers cheap labor, manufacturing, and America offers innovation, new revolutionary ideas, which also involves a much better, efficient governing system, keeping things intact. Stats, all that stuff comes with how these two countries do business, but America is efficient most of the time. Now, in 2022, this will play a big part in poverty rates because a lot of this is money talk. This is how money is circulated by production, gross domestic product, all that stuff. Now, this is all about technical innovations as well, and how more effective in thinking about a more effective way to do business in 2022. So keeping these countries on the same page all has to do with this, and all has to do with how business is conducted effectively and how people are competing with prices. And that's why story number 3 made it this week. Why the China and U.S. relationship is a global story. Big headline. Story number 4. A snapshot of the 2022 foreign agenda. Snapshot. According to one CNN report, 1,450 Afghan kids were evacuated to the United States without their parents in 2021. The headline ends with the line that some will never reunite with their parents at all, and that's not a good story. Taking a look back at a lot of past conflicts that have led up to this point in 2022, the focus will be on creating better policies and learning from our own mistakes as a country. Now, moving forward, the world is learning that no matter who the American president is or what the American people do, it's more beneficial to have an American at the dinner table than not having one at all. The country, the president, anybody. Now, the Afghan people have not been the same since the U.S. evacuated this year. Now, in 2022, with foreign policy still a topic of discussion and many wars dying down, the focus in 2022 may be aid, repairing old wounds, and preventing any other wars from escalating across the globe. Diplomacy will also will play a big part in 2022, and that's why story number 4 made it this week. Well, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, one of my last customers headed into 2022 this week out of 2021 came in and he was looking for an Elvis movie. I couldn't believe it. I had not heard of Elvis in a while. But it shows you that you got to be prepared as a business person heading into 2022, because I never thought that somebody would come in looking for it. I've seen all types of things. They come in looking for different types of albums, different type of movies, but Elvis was new. I'm thinking about some soul. Please, 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 please. But Elvis, I'm all shook up. Do-do-do, do, yeah, I'm all shook up. Do-do-do. So I have to begin the year thinking about Elvis on New Year's. Never thought out of all of my years of mediation on a global scale, the gospel of mediation, I came into this year thinking about Elvis. Life can be scary, and it can be what they say, unbelievable at times. But let's think about Elvis this year. And think about smooth and tender. Well, folks, that's what my year began with this week. Is a customer, my last customer of the year, coming in and talking about Elvis. Some of my last customers. Well, folks, it's time to get to it. I'm ready to start this year off right, and I'll do it the right way. So let's waste some time. Let's get to it. The honky tonk man. Woo. Story number 5. Who is paying for COVID-19? It's expensive. The COVID-19 bill is big. The big bill. It was frightening. Big bill. Ooh, scary. The bill is so big that it may take a few lifetimes for taxpayers to pay for it. The centerpiece of this story has a lot to do with where the virus originated. Now, with so much new information coming in every day about COVID-19, the origins, and even just about the origins of it, just that origin story may never be justified, so nobody may ever know truthfully where this virus came from. Now, the new talk circulating around this story is if the world overreacted. If we just overreacted. You see a man in a room, head spinning around, he can't let people looking through a window, they don't want to touch him. Maybe we may have overreacted. Now, once again, America is leading the way in this discussion because Americans don't care. We're going out, we're doing things, we don't care anymore. Folks don't. Some people care, but people are getting in fights because they just don't care anymore. And that's why story number 5 made it this week. Who is paying for COVID? Everybody's paying for it, folks. And that's why I made it this week. Big headline. Story number 6. The ripple effect of vaccine mandates. The mandate battle is either settling down or it's being swept under the rug. Either way, there's been a ripple effect. Something has happened, a cause and effect. Now, vaccine mandates force a lot of people to get the vaccine in fear of losing their job. And some people did lose their job because they didn't want to get it. Now, this is just another story, a brewing story that's filled with lawsuits and backbiting. Now, to see the big picture of the ripple effect brought on by vaccine mandates, to see the ripple effect over time, we're going to have to look at how many career workers have been affected to see how this turns out. And we're also going to have to look at what major decisions that these workers had to face and had to make financially just to stay afloat, because some of them were career employees and may have lost their job because they didn't want to get the vaccine. And that's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. The ripple effect of vaccine mandates. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Get up now. I got 2 top stories for you. Put your hands up. Story number 7, the staffing shortages and why this story matters. Good help is hard to find. A lot of people are saying that. Now, this matters because a few days into 2022, there are still reports of staffing shortages. Employers have a few concerns in this headlines, and here they are. Number one, the toxic worker syndrome. People just can't seem to pass the drug test. And even if there is no drug test, it's evident that some workers are on drugs because of their behavior. Number two, the overqualified syndrome. Overqualified workers are finding themselves in a work environment where knowing too much could cost them their job. Number three, the pay problem. Employers are finding out that they cannot afford to meet the demands put in place by the government or even the workers to pay them. There's too much money. Number four, meeting safety codes is also another topic of discussion because of COVID-19. Some people just can't afford to meet those safety concerns that the people are demanding, especially OSHA. Number five, more talk, less work. That's what's happening. There's more talking and less working going on the workroom floor these days because employers are very concerned about this one big main concern. There's just not a lot people doing because there's a lot of time for discussion and there's just not a lot of time for work. For some odd reason, while everybody's collecting a paycheck, everybody seems to be a politician, a debater, and this is happening on the workroom floor, and a lot of employers are getting very tired of it because they can't afford it. Now, these 4 talking points is what has this story staying alive, and that's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week, going into 2022. Big hit. Story number 8 and the first top story in 2022. Ooh, don't you feel it? Don't you feel it? Woohoo! Story number 8, are we winning the COVID-19 war? Now in 2022, the world has to scrap whatever plan we had to defeat COVID-19. We have to face the fact that the only plan that seems to be working is outside of the plans that were handed down from the medical professionals. And that's to strengthen the good old immune system the best way we can. Now the details in this story are important because the world watched China shut down and followed their lead by assuming that it could work in capitalism, especially America. Now in America, that plan has turned out to be a disaster. Shutdowns and the gamble to rely on vaccines have caused a world of problems. Hitting the rewind button is what we have to do. The COVID-19 debate has hit the political arena hard. It's hit it very, very hard. Now, COVID-19 stories are still in major headlines 2 years later after the fact, and there is more uncertainty surrounding this recovery. Now, this is yet another story that has everyone putting their 2 cents in on if we're winning the COVID-19 war or not. A lot of people are staying optimistic, and that may be the key now that we are in 2022. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines in developing news stories that made in this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the people in the front lines, the journalists, the media. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator, the man in the middle. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Thank you for tuning in, folks. Happy New Year. We are now into 2022. Have a good week, everybody. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.